What's up, guys? Happy Halloween. Well, it's at least Halloween when I'm recording this, so I'm in the spirit. Becoming a professional athlete is a childhood dream for so many people. Growing up, almost everyone fantasizes about stepping up to the plate with the bases loaded and 2 outs, in the bottom of the ninth, of course. Or leading the offense down the field for the game-winning touchdown. Maybe sinking a buzzer-beating three-pointer. Whatever the sport or dream may be, needless to say, reaching this level in sports is nearly impossible. It requires an elite level of athleticism, dedication, and if we're being honest, a little bit of luck along the way. So much so that as fans, we often forget that the pro athletes we see on TV are in fact people too. Human beings that can be distracted by the same things that throw us regular folks for a loop. This could be a number of things. The pressure of a big moment, organizational chaos. I'm looking at you, New York sports teams, mainly the Jets and Mets. Theatrics in and around the playing field. And last but not least, the occasional fans that rely on their God-given assets to mess with an athlete's rhythm during a game. While I'm sure everybody's aware of this phenomenon, it has been thrust back in forefront of so many people's minds following the performance that 2 fans put on in DC during Game 5 of this year's World Series. Those 2 women took the internet by storm, to say the very least, and I'm sure that's what they wanted. That got us thinking about some of the other strategic stunts that the sporting world's bravest female fans have pulled off in recent years. So without further ado, let's take a look at 13 of the most noteworthy distractions orchestrated by physically well-endowed fans, starting with our most recent. Make sure to subscribe to TPS and put on your notifications. We post videos all the time. New videos all the time. Number 13. Houston, we don't have a problem. The 2019 World Series has been one to remember for a number of reasons, especially when you consider how disinterested the public seemed to be when it commenced, and everyone was sure that the Astros were going to blow out the Washington Nationals. That was until the Nats shocked everybody by beating both Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander in Houston. Then we had all the mayhem surrounding the now former Astros assistant GM, who directed some inappropriate comments towards a group of female reporters following Houston's ALCS triumph. Then the story flipped when the Astros finally did the right thing in Canton, before stealing the next 3 games in DC. Let's just say that there's no shortage of storylines in this one. And that was all before these 2 Instagram models stole the show entirely during Game 5 in DC. When the event took place, the internet immediately went berserk, as it always does. This was far from the first time that something like this has taken place, though. But boy, was it an impressive display. There was an onslaught of takes that came out of it too. Many people thought it was all for clout, which, in fairness, it clearly was. But afterwards, it came out that they were promoting their foundation that supports cancer awareness, which is pretty awesome. Can't knock it. A show and worthy cause. Sounds like a win-win if I ever heard one. Number 12. Houston Rockets fans launch a diversion for the ages. Now, I can't officially confirm if these 2 women in question from the Astros and Nationals game were actually Astros fans, but a couple of Houston Rockets fans pulled a similar stunt back in 2016. This one, however, seemed to be solely to distract Ryan Anderson during his free throws. There was 4 minutes left in the 4th quarter of a tie ball game when Anderson stepped to the line looking to break this tie. At the moment, 2 female fans decided to take the game into their own hands by shedding their overcoats to try and distract him. And while they surely caught some backlash from the team and league officials, I'm sure we can all agree that this was a far less egregious move than the one a male Rockets fan pulled a few weeks later. Number 11. Where in the world is Ayesha Curry? The women in Houston weren't the only female fans to ever throw an NBA player off their game. During the 2016 NBA Finals, Steph Curry fell victim to some friendly fire when a big-time Warriors fan was caught on camera giving the superstar a questionable look from the crowd. Now, this fan didn't have quite the flair for dramatics that these 2 women donning trench coats in Houston did, but she sure caught the attention of Curry and the internet. The latter had an absolute field day getting jokes off at Steph and Ayesha's expense. I'm sure a fun conversation ensued in the Curry household after this one. Number 10. Marlins Mane's Mermaid Brigade distracts the birds. Even if you aren't the biggest sports fan, chances are you have at least heard of Marlins Mane, the middle-aged lawyer who made waves on the internet for donning his bright orange Miami Marlins jersey to just about every primetime sporting event he can get to. The guy lives for the spotlight. One time back in 2015, the Kansas City Royals owner even reached out to Marlins Mane directly, requesting that he wear anything other than his typical traffic cone-esque uniform. Of course, that request was utterly dismayed by the Miami-based lawyer. It doesn't really matter what state it's in, or even the sport. If the national spotlight will be on it, Lawrence Levy, better known as Marlins Mane, will be there. And sometimes he likes to draw a little more attention by inviting a couple of attractive dames along with him. Usually his lady friends are just there to sit behind home home plate and get a little screen time. But on this particular night in St. Louis, one of them decided to try and take the game into her own hands by getting into the St. Louis Cardinals pitcher's head. Unfortunately for Levy and his entourage, the Cardinals would still end up winning the game, but I doubt anybody remembers the outcome. Number 9, a star is born during Dallas for a St. Louis playoff game. It isn't just well-orchestrated distractions like the one that the Mermaids ran in South Florida that can get athletes off their game. During the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, one fan had a much more organic strategy. That one provided to be equally as effective. It was Game 6. Tensions were high in the arena. You'd think that the players would be completely logged in on the action on the ice. But alas, somehow a couple of Stars players were led astray from keeping their eye on the puck. While I'm sure Dallas's coaching staff would have preferred that their players stay focused on the actual game, at least Buddy tried to be discreet about it and only stole a quick glance. Number 8, Blues on the big screen. Keeping it in the realm of the NHL and the Stanley Cup playoffs, one fan who actually attends a number of St. Louis Blues games and is always sitting right behind the visitors bench made her presence felt during a playoff game between the Blues and the San Jose Sharks. I can't really quite put my finger on what drew the attention of people from all different corners of the internet. Maybe it was something about the cut of her jib or her shirt. I don't know. Either way, the fans sparked an internet fire, and the Twitter timeline was covered with Blues talk. I mean, it got to the point that the fan got her own unique hashtag trending. Sharks fans took solace in the fact that this fan sat behind their bench, treating it as a moral victory amid the tough defeat. This fan deserves bonus points for being one of the rare internet heroes to become a recurring guest on the timeline, as she actually made a couple of other appearances on social media, sitting in those very same seats behind the visitors bench. Apparently, she'd be going to games long before going viral, almost always in that same blue shirt. Who would have known? Number 7. Okay, maybe there is something in the water in St. Louis. This one is dating us a little bit, but if you turn the clocks back to 2013, you will see that the tradition of leveraging one's assets in an effort to cause some sort of distraction is a long-standing tradition in St. Louis. The incident in question was during Game 2 of the playoff series against the Chicago Blackhawks. And while it's super unclear who was trying to disrupt and why, the cameras panned over at the exact right moment. The only other person who seems aware of what's going on in this clip is the guy seated right next to her, who appears to be having a good laugh about the whole situation. And while we may never know the entire story for this one, at least she stood up for what she believed in, whatever it was. Number 6, Ovi and the Capitals are rewarded for finally winning the cup. There must be something about playoff hockey that really gets the juices flowing in the crowd. After nearly a decade of excellent regular season play, culminating in a few President's Cup trophies and a number of early playoff exits, Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals finally got the monkey off their backs in 2018, and they took home the Stanley Cup. The Caps did it in dramatic fashion as well, winning a decisive Game 7 in Las Vegas against the Knights. After the game, while Ovechkin was taking his victory lap around the ice and wielding the cup high above his head in all his glory, some of his teammates who were lagging behind got distracted by an overexcited fan. Come on, guys. You just won the Stanley Cup in Vegas. Like, what do you expect? Either way, I'm sure this wasn't the only debauchery to take place during the Caps championship celebration. Number 5. The glass wasn't the only thing shaken in Detroit. While I'm sure the players do a little better, I guess I could say, than the referees do on the road, it doesn't mean that the players get to have all the fun, especially when the fun is meant to be a distraction. During this rather unnoteworthy game between the Detroit Red Wings and the Anaheim Ducks, there was a stoppage in play when one of the boards was rattled loose and the glass needed to be stabilized. As a couple of the referees surrounded the staff that was working on the glass, a couple of enthusiastic fans took it upon themselves to aggressively taunt the refs. I don't know if they liked the Zebras' calls or hated them, but they definitely made sure that the refs knew they felt some type of way. Whatever it was. Credit to the official though. He did a fantastic job of staying stone-faced and not giving any satisfaction. A true professional, even in the most dire of situations. Number 4. An unsurprisingly South Beach outfit in Miami. This one also goes back to 2013, which is getting frighteningly further in the rearview mirror. I mean, that's 2 teams ago for LeBron, who is still in the midst of repeating as NBA champion with the Heat. I'm gonna assume that this game took place in Miami because I doubt this kind of fan even exists in San Antonio, which is who the Heat were squared up with. The night in question was Game 1 of a highly anticipated NBA Finals matchup. The world was foaming at the mouth, waiting and hoping that LeBron was going to botch another finals appearance. And just as the anti-LeBron narrative is such a large unifier on the internet streets, so was the cameo that this healthy fan made. She was sniped by the camera as the crew panned over towards the Spurs general manager, who, as luck would have it, was sitting right in front of one of South Beach's finest. The Spurs would go on to steal Game 1 on the road, leading many people to wonder if the fan in question served more as motivation, rather than a distraction for the visiting team. Number 3. the first concussion Sidney Crosby enjoyed. Bringing clever signs has long been a tradition in both college and professional sports. Some of them show support for a favorite team or player. Some of them make a pointed jeer at an opponent. And some of them were an original form of sliding in the DMs. And even though DMs have largely taken over in terms of actual attempts at meeting a pro athlete, some fans still like to get creative with their sales pitch. Which is exactly what happened in Pittsburgh when a pretty blonde female fan shot her shot at Sidney Crosby. She showed up to the PPG Paints Arena, makeup on, hair done up, and wielding a sign that read, "Sid, I want my headboard to give you a concussion." Hopefully Crosby, who has a pretty serious past with concussions, took the joke in a good fun, as he should have. I'm just saying, it's not the worst way to get a concussion. Number 2, down in front. While many of the sultry fans we have seen here were seeking to distract or grab the attention of an athlete, official, or at the very least, the camera, this dame seems like she was putting on a show purely for the love of the game. Honestly, there were no players in sight. No officials. And the TV cameras didn't get her. Instead, a fan filmed her dancing in a questionable getup from a cell phone. I'm sure there were a couple of male fans spread around who probably enjoyed the show, but they were a silent majority, as one rather boisterous female fan berated her, shouting repeatedly to get down from her perch. Now I get it. There were probably kids in the section. Or maybe she just caught her husband staring at the temptress. Either way, it was a shame she chased her down. Who knows what would have transpired. Number 1. Fan eagerly seeks Ben Eager's attention. For our final reference, we go all the way back to 2011, when the Vancouver Canucks were squaring off against the San Jose Sharks in the Western Conference Finals. Quick side note for those keeping score at home, hockey fans are absolutely dominating this list. So maybe there is something to that whole puck chaser, puck bunny thing. Anyway, during Game 2, the San Jose Sharks' Ben Eager got whistled for a penalty. And as he's probably done hundreds of times in his life, he skated over to the penalty box, expecting to calmly wait out his 2-minute timeout. A fan sitting next to the penalty box had a different idea in store for Eager. She made her presence known as she leaned up against the glass. Eager probably appreciated the gesture. It was overall a tough night for the Sharks, who lost 7-3. So at least he could take this moral victory with him. What do you think is the best distraction of all time? Join me in the comment section below. Make sure to follow myself and TPS on social media. We post great content all the time. Subscribe to TPS because we post videos every single day. If you like this video, give it a like. It takes one click. Of course, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jason Biondo. I'll see you next time.
On my knees.